Okay, so whenever you've had number two was have you ever had to read a really long article or document and what would have made it easier? This is definitely for any type of like I had an email today that had all the documentation for like 401k and like retirement stuff. Those type of things always have so much in them and are hard to understand. So if you could tell it the role it needs to take on as like an expert in like different retirement planning and all that and can explain it to you if you needed to say it as like a novice or someone who was just completely inept at understanding maybe that topic. You're needing help putting together like a case, like a civil suit case or whatever, and you have all your documentation together. It's a lot of it, but you also need to look up previous cases and stuff. You can kind of have it then help you go through it all, generate reports as if it was an assistant being like a lawyer for you and helping to advocate for you. And so I'll skip to before going back to that one. I think yeah. So I had it create this image of imagining somebody having to sort through a lot and lot of data. And I was like, that'd be Santa Claus with all his listed names. Okay. So keeping up with the whole world's population and who's naughty and who's nice. I told it to put Matt H in there as nice. I told it to, it had some duplicates originally of names that I told it to remove. But for the image of somebody going through a long list and at least he checks it twice, we know. So he puts the time in, but I imagine it takes a lot of time, and maybe that's why he only works the 1 day a year. So maybe it takes him 364 days, to put all this together and keep up with it. He has all his folders, his documentation, even has a reindeer laying in the back. Now, what if Santa had Santa AI, okay, and had an app that he could use that was able to help him with the world database of children without breaking privacy stuff and rules because Santa's the one who's allowed to do that. He is able to watch us and all the things that we do, so he would have real time computer vision picking up and analyzing things. So I like this example as he's watching these kids in this situation. The activity, it identified it as group play. Cooperation of the group, it rated it as 8.5 out of 10 for this bin. Joy marked him as 9 to 10, and that the computer vision analysis showed that he was sharing a toy. It would be able to keep up with everybody's wish lists and gift links to where things could be acquired from. So maybe it's linked to an Amazon list or shopping cart. The toy drones in stock. Okay. Certain things are ordered, certain things are shipping. Behavior trends, probabilities, making predictions on who's going to be nice or who's going to be naughty. Maybe he needs to know real time updates on and predictions of weather for whenever he has to go out in his sleigh. And then he can make queries of this database of like Matt H at that time, real time data, cut on all the computer vision he has, be able to see one day my wish list might be one thing and the next day it's something else. Okay. And then are you on the fence? Was the thing I put in there, okay, between going back and seeing is somebody in there in between nice and naughty, and so what changes in that time? Obviously, this would be a much better way for our Santa Claus to operate where maybe he wouldn't have to spend so much time checking his list. So back to the three, imagine you had to research five different companies in 1 hour. How would you do it? So this could apply to any of us that are wanting to start a business or want to know more about certain companies that you need to compare the ones that are doing well to see how they're doing it and apply it yourself, see where the market is maybe oversaturated. If you were to research areas like Starkville, Mississippi, like I mentioned earlier, you'll probably realize there's plenty of Mexican restaurants. So you probably don't need to open a Mexican restaurant. You don't have to. Us in Batesville get tired as like another chicken place or something like that. Yeah, so research what is actually oversaturated, what doesn't exist in a location, And then what about the population that's there? Are they actually going to embrace it and come to your company? And if it's a restaurant, are they going to want to flock into your doors? So I have an example of, there it was. What if we did want to compare? Maybe we were doing research that we were going to open a bookstore. So I used Gemini and I took screenshots of this process. I said compare the marketing spend ratio for the top 5 booksellers so I could get a better understanding of what they spend and how that equates to customers and sales. So I want to see how much money they spend on marketing for money that they have that they're making, and then where their money's going and how that ultimately comes back to customers coming in the doors, and not just in the doors but sales. And it said analyzing the marketing spend ratio, often measured as marketing spend as a percentage of revenue, reveals a fascinating divide in the book industry. The top 5 booksellers are split between massive e-commerce tech platforms and traditional brick and mortar stores. Okay. And then it says here is how the marketing spend ratios break down across the major players. So we have the marketing spend and efficiency leaderboard, okay, are different book retailers put together in this chart for us. I screenshotted so it had, if I go over to the right, I'm able to read all the sales strategy. But notice we have Amazon first, just of these 5, being our global online leader. They spend the percentage of the revenue for marketing the highest in 11 to 13%. So I definitely wanted to follow up on that. Their primary customer acquisition focus is ecosystem lock-in via Prime benefits. So they're wanting you in the Amazon ecosystem and creating being a Prime member. They also are all about algorithms on being able to suggest what products that you might like. Then we have a physical retail store, Barnes& and Noble, 5 to 7%. But their big focus is on local community engagement and store experience. Then we have Books a Million with 6 to 8. Apple Books are digital, and Google are digital options are 3 to 5%. And then your independent bookstores typically 4 to 6%. And so I didn't go into all 5 of them just for this example, but I wanted to see the breakdown then of like, okay, what can we glean from that information? So Amazon, they allocate a massive chunk of top line revenue to marketing, but they approach it differently. They have turned marketing into a closed loop through retail media networks. So how it works, the mechanics, they're not just spending money to attract buyers. Okay, they do things like they charge publishers and independent authors to run campaign ads for their products. So I mean, they make money from that going in. Also, how it equates to sales, the standard target for an e-commerce campaign on Amazon is an advertising cost of sales of roughly 30%, which equates to a 3 to 4 return on ad spend. Okay. They have a high conversion rate, and also the customers are usually already Prime member shopping, so you're in that closed system where you're getting the deals, and if you're getting your free shipping over certain amount spent, things like that, they have more and more of your data, and so for the algorithm to get better at suggesting things. So because their system works the way it does, they see it's worth it to put more back into the marketing. But then a brick and mortar store like Barnes and Noble, they historically had spent heavily on corporate overhead and broad promotional discounts back in the day, and they completely changed their strategy where they changed it where corporate marketing wasn't really a focus anymore, and you focus on the individual stores. Okay, so the way the mechanics work is that they stop doing top-down national ad campaigns, and they treat the retail floor as the primary marketing vehicle. And so you might have noticed going into like a Barnes and Noble or Books a Million, they let the store managers have their employees change window displays that'll be different from other stores. They could follow local trends rather than following what corporate dictates. So by lowering the corporate ad spending to the 5 to 7% range, they reallocate their capital to open nearly 60 new stores recently. Their customer acquisition relies heavily on their premium tier loyalty program, so they offer their program that gives a standard 10% off and free shipping to drive repeat foot traffic. This strategy capitalizes on the reality that hard copy books still command over 75% of total market revenue, pulling in readers who explicitly want a screen free, tactile browsing experience. Okay, that example was to, even though it was a little more deep and had the jargon of that industry, was to show how we could research something like those five examples of these companies and how they're spending their money to get money and be successful businesses. Maybe you're just curious, or maybe this is an example of something you would do if I were wanting to research to open up my own bookstore, whether it was a digital storefront or a brick and mortar. So ultimately, AI tools is going to help you research faster and smarter. Okay. We'll cover how to ask AI good questions, get summaries of information, and organize what we find. By the end of the lesson, we'll use AI like a personal research assistant. I think we had make sure that was covered. What kind of questions do you think an AI tool could answer quickly? Especially something like Gemini and having access to the internet, you're going to be able to ask anything of questions of what it has access to and what type of information is out there. And when you search for something online, how do you know if the information is actually true? That's very big today because there's a lot of misinformation. There are things created with AI that are completely false, that a person put in the prompt to be misleading. So in that case, it wouldn't be hallucination. It would be that you told it to create that. So if you wanted it to create a deep fake of somebody, a politician doing something that they didn't do, or if you wanted to put a fictional character in a real life situation, ultimately we have to be able to, if there's transparency and we see when AI tools are used, then we can know that there's room for error. But if it's coming to research, we always need to be checking sources. And there have been instances where AI has even made up its sources. Okay, so you probably want to click on those links it offers and do a little digging and fact checking based on how high the stakes are. Is this for a school paper? Is this to make sure that your sources are legit and that you cite them correctly for it that could affect your grade? Is this for like a work project that could affect your work performance and evaluation? So it relies heavily on what that is. If it's just a general interest research thing that's low stakes, you might not go into checking every single one of the sources. So what is AI research? AI research means using tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to understand and organize information quickly. So instead of spending hours reading articles, you can ask AI to explain a topic, okay, in a certain fashion. You could tell it how you want it to break it down, if it's going to summarize key points, and create lists of important facts. Now, note AI doesn't replace real research, it helps you work faster and smarter. So the human element is still there of giving it what you're needing to look into. You might be aware of certain research that's important that you need to use, so you would let the AI know that you want to use said source. You're wanting to pull some stuff for diseases from cdc.org, things like that. Think of it as having a smart assistant who reads information and explains it to you in plain language. So, why use AI for your research? Well, it saves time by instantly answering questions instead of making you search through maybe multiple websites or having to read pages and pages of documents that might be heavy in jargon. It could break difficult topics and jargon into simple terms, making it easier to understand. Could organize information into useful formats like outlines, comparisons, and timelines. It's especially helpful for work tasks like researching competitors, understanding industry trends, or learning about new tools. The key is knowing what questions to ask and how to use the answers wisely. So, for good research prompts, just like the good prompts in general, they need to be clear and specific and tell AI what it is that you need. But for your research, instead of being just vague, what is marketing? Maybe you say explain three key differences between social media marketing and email marketing. Be specific about what you want. Do you want a summary, a list, a comparison, or an explanation? Tell AI who you are or what level you're at in your company with your role, your title. If it's with the topic, and you're not an expert, you could say, I'm new or I'm a novice when it comes to data analysis and explain data analysis to me simply, or even make it explain it to you as if you were in a different role, like if I were a 10-year-old. The more details you give, the better answer you'll get.
You said something a minute ago, and I just remember that country song that it could say "Son of the Hedgehog."
Yeah.
But when I was doing my book, so when I did my book, I said, "Give me the top five, top 20 animes, and compare my book to see am I along the same lines as the most popular ones." But it didn't reject me and say I can't say the book name. Actually, it broke down each book for me. It took time out. I guess when I, as you said, it went and read all the book, came back and said, it says this in this book, and you said this.
Yeah, well, it could do that because it could summarize the books as if you had the copy. So if you told it to give you details about it, I think it's based on what it thinks I was trying to do. I think it thinks we were going to actually try to submit this song, and have lyrics and it be commercial rather than just for fun. And then, of course, we can't, based on certain rules, we might need a permission to put a trademark character's name in the song, or especially like in a book and times that you have to get permissions to put somebody's like lyrics or an excerpt from another work. There's usually workarounds. If you're just doing it for general interest or fun, you usually could tell it, no, I'm not using this for money, like, can you tell me connections between my book and this, and get it to give you the insights that you're looking for. But that's just some of those safeguards that are in play, that sometimes are overkill, and you're like, oh, I'm just wanting to know more about their work, and maybe you don't have a copy of it. So for it to, if it has access to it, to be able to pull, now you might want to know like sales from a certain work for a certain author, then it might tell you that might be private information if it's not publicly known. If something's a public detail or known has been released or whatever, it should have access to it. So if it's something that you could find and then it's telling you that it can't, maybe you get it prompted that it should be public information if it's something would be released. Okay, that way then it's like, okay, and then see if it gives it to you then. So ultimately, the types of research tasks are going to rely on that's going to change how you prompt it depending on what you're wanting it to do. So you might be wanting just to find facts on a topic, but what if you're comparing options like different software tools? You might want it to break it down into a compare and contrast, summarizing documents, explaining hard concepts, researching competitors or markets, collecting expert opinions, and organizing information into outlines. Each of these tasks would need a slightly different type of prompt. For example, the summarization one, maybe you say summarize this in 3 sentences. That's letting it know to be short, to ask for brevity, while creating a detailed outline, ask for organization. Always match your prompt to what you actually need. Summarization basics. Summarization means taking a long piece of information and making it much shorter while keeping the most important ideas. Back to when we had to write a summary over a chapter summary that we read like in school, or a summary of an excerpt of a text. AI is excellent at this. You can ask AI to summarize a paragraph, a page, or even a whole article or document into just, you could specify the amount of sentences or have it in a form of like bulleted points. A good summary answers the core question, what is this really about, without going into extra details. Okay. Ask AI things like summarize the key points in 3 sentences or create a 1 paragraph summary of this topic for a beginner. And I did have a resource that I found that I was going to show. Okay, LinkedIn, there was this person shared AI prompts for document summarization, so you could definitely go back and read this whole article. It had some good tips, but it contains 10 AI prompts for document summarization with sample outputs. So you have a prompt for if you wanted to write a basic summary, a bullet point summary, executive summary for leadership, summarize with action items, legal document summary, research paper summary, summarizing meeting notes, summarizing for social media post, sentiment analysis summary, and summarize long document with section headings. So I thought that was a pretty good resource that you could go to and like copy and paste and have saved somewhere to use. And of course, this is going to work in your different tools like Chat, Claude, and Gemini. Okay. And then you have some good prompts in your toolbox, in your wheelhouse. Just a basic summary of text in general, right? That if it was a document, you might say summarize the following document in 3 to 4 concise sentences. If you wanted the bullet point summary, you might say provide a bullet point summary of the key points from this text. And of course, you're going to have to paste in or upload the source, whatever the text was. If it ever tells you that it doesn't, if it can't work with it, like you upload a PDF, some of them can't do that. And so that's when maybe you could copy and paste the text. At one point, ChatGPT was only able to do so much at a time in the, even I think in my paid tier, that I think I uploaded a PDF one time that was very long and it was saying to try to do it in sections. So maybe if it was a PDF and it was of a book with chapters, try to put in like a chapter at a time and market them. So it might have trouble with the large text at one point. It might be better handled to go to Document AI and Document AI that's especially suited for long documents and like PDFs and seeing what types or thing you could get Gemini or Chat to tell you then which one would be best suited for that task if you ever come to that issue there. Now, organizing information, after you gather information, AI can help you organize it in useful ways. You can ask AI to create outlines, comparison tables, timelines, or categorize lists. For example, ask to create a table comparing these 3 tools, or maybe say make a step-by-step outline of how to start a business. Good organization is going to make the information easier to understand and for you to actually use. It also helps you spot patterns or missing information you need to research more. Checking your research. Okay, AI is helpful, and usually you're going to have the thing saying it's not perfect when you go to like Gemini to have that disclaimer or Chat that you're probably going to see that somewhere. I think it puts it. Oh, I noticed the message is different today. What's the vibe, Matthew? Okay, so then when I do my prompt, I notice under our place for input that we have Gemini is AI and can make mistakes. So we have that disclaimer. That's what I was wanting to show. So it's not perfect. So based on how high the stakes are, you always want to check important information against trusted sources like official websites, published reports, or expert sources. If AI gives you numbers, dates, or quotes, verify them elsewhere. Look for obvious mistakes we've been noting in images like imperfections, things that don't make sense, and ask yourself, does this match what I already know? Ask, would an expert in that field agree with this? Using AI doesn't mean that you or I get to stop thinking critically. It means that we're working smarter while staying careful. So I got AI to create an image of misinformation. If you did have like a chart created and it's saying Christopher Columbus sailed in 1592, well, I kind of cheated because I told it to do that rather than say 1492, right? But then we note that we have an error there that the date was wrong. It's a big deal because we're off by 100 years. We need to check our sources. I thought it was interesting in here, though, that then we have some imperfections and that I didn't ask for, that it repeats AI hallucination twice. It mentions a hallucination that's here, but that doesn't exist. This is just only in this picture, so there aren't names of ships. The only thing I told it to do was to create the infographic showing that Christopher Columbus sailed to America, and I said instead of saying 1492, say 1592, and then catch that that was an AI imperfection. But it did note always double check dates and historical events with trusted primary sources. So I thought it was very interesting to note in the example I wanted it to create an imperfection that we have a few other imperfections. Real workplace example. Imagine you work in marketing and need to research 5 competitor companies in 2 hours or a shorter time. Instead of visiting each website, clicking through all the tabs, you can ask research AI to research these 5 competitors and create a comparison table showing their main products, their price ranges, and their target customers. AI gathers information and organizes it into one easy table you can use immediately. You still verify the key facts, but you saved hours of probably boring research work and got organized, useful information. Your research plan. In the next activity, you're going to pick a real topic that matters to you, you're interested in, or you're planning to use it for work or a future project. You'll write your research prompt, use AI to gather information, summarize what you find, and organize it into a useful format. By the end, you'll have a real research document you can use. Remember, good prompts make good research. Be clear, be specific, and always double check important information. So for the guided build, you would go to ChatGPT or Claude. Okay, ChatGPT, definitely if you're comfortable already using it, it's fine. I would say you could also use Gemini if you used it before. Create an account if you're going to try out Claude, and if you didn't have it, choose a research topic. So, such as remote work trends in 2024. So now we're going to future, maybe it's remote work trends in 2030, or AI tools for small businesses. Read the prompt out together. I'm learning about blank. Explain the 3 most important things I should know, written for someone new to this topic. Type that in your AI tool. Replace the topic bracket with your actual topic. You'll read the answer. Look at what's clear and what might need more explanation. Then you can ask a follow-up question to create a bullet point list of 5 practical ways someone can use this information. Look at the new answer, discuss which points are most useful and why, and ask one more prompt. Organize this information into 3 categories: basics, benefits, and challenges. And then together decide, does this organized version help you understand the topic better? What would you still need to research on your own to complete your knowledge? So we'll do that, and we'll use that example and do remote work trends, and we could do like next year, 2027. So I'm learning about blank. explain the three most important things I should know, written for someone new to this topic, and maybe I'm really interested in remote work. So we're looking to the future trends for the next maybe 5 years instead of giving the. Okay, then we have an introduction about remote work. Hybrid work is the definite winner. A shift from hours logged to results delivered. The rise of asynchronous and global work. We did say three most important things I should know. So then the next part, follow-up question, create a bullet point list of 5 practical ways someone could use this information. So I'm just going to copy that in there as our follow-up. Okay, 5 practical ways you could use these trends to your advantage, such as shift your mindset to output in performance reviews, or invest in digital literacy and AI tools. And then we'll say organize this into 3 categories: basics, benefits, and challenges. Put this in chart form. There we have it broken down into basics, benefits, and challenges. So we have, it did good at not giving us 2 minutes since we limited it to 3 at first, not too much reading to do. We have some sources that we could go through and verify to check, okay? And you could click on the links that pop up. Note, it might suggest follow-up questions, want to look closer, or give the question and you could just say yes or click yes. But we had our questions already predetermined. And note how I could take it and put the information in a certain format, say if I wanted a chart like we did. And does this organized version help us understand the topic better? And what would you still need to research on your own to complete for your own understanding? Yeah, I think the chart definitely is pulling the basics, such as target by company type, learning software for asynchronous tools like Slack, Notion, upskilling in digital literacy. Being able to look at these little nuggets of information is helping it to be shorter and more easily to digest. Maybe that's where we could follow up then on a certain thing on focus on output over hours. Okay, we could ask a follow-up question on maybe to create a scenario. Create a scenario where a worker output over hours. And maybe we say what they do, content writer, and then give the worker. Since it's a scenario we asked it to create, we actually have this hypothetical person, Maya, is a remote content writer because the context were remote and like hybrid jobs too, for a fast growing digital marketing agency. Traditional 40 hours a week, but they shifted to more outcome based. So we're looking more at, before it was logging like 8 hours a day, now it's delivering certain metrics. And so that's an example of how we could use it helping to research a topic, breaking it down, organizing it different ways, gleaning information, and asking good follow-up questions. So now you have your lab being able to pick a topic that interests you and using the prompts that are given, the templates there, such as I want to learn about blank. Okay. Follow those steps. You'll ask it to create a detailed summary of blank. Follow-up prompts and save your document. That will lead to your portfolio artifact for this lesson. Common problems and their solutions. Yet again, be sure to read the best practices for the lesson. Read over the reflection journal. Okay, we discussed some of these live in the videos with those in class. Feel free to write all those down and take pictures if you prefer your reflection journal to be a physical journal, or you just add it in your notes, say in Google Drive, Google Docs, the assessment, and that completes lesson